I've just finished listening to the audiobook version of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it got me thinking about how I've used these principles as a medical student. So in this video, I'm going to discuss how these 7 habits relate to life as a medical student. And if you don't like self-help books, don't worry, I find a lot of them cringy too, but I did find this one to be particularly useful, and I've been using a lot of its principles since I read it for the first time in high school, so maybe it'll help you out too. If you're new to the channel, hello! I'm Sil. I just finished my final year medical exams, so I'm in this weird state of kind of being a medical student, but kind of transitioning into being a junior doctor. In my extracurricular time, I do YouTube videos and try to make content that is hopefully helpful to medical students or people who are just interested in medicine. Anyway, on with the video. Habit number 1. Be proactive. Now in the book, the purpose of this habit is really to focus your energy on things that you can control. And that involves consciously identifying all the things that are beyond your control and just kind of accepting them because they're beyond your control, and then only working on what you can control. And this has come up a lot in medicine. We don't always get good grades, and if you spend all your energy feeling sorry for yourself about a bad grade that you get, that is not productive. That is not being proactive. That is a waste of energy. I get that it's easier said than done, but if you can focus your energy instead of how you can do better in the next essay, assignment, whatever it is, then you can learn from your mistakes, and that is totally within your control. Just recently, we had our 4 final exams. Now, the first 2 for me went very well, but the third one did not go well. I passed, but it was not a impressive performance, and I felt sorry for myself. I was pretty, emotional and annoyed, but I know that I needed to perform well on the final exam, and that being kind of frustrated with myself about this bad performance would affect my grades, because the final exam was an interview basically. So I had to kind of be confident and kind of energetic, and being a sulky Suki Lala wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I focused on what I could control, which was, how I would perform in the final exam, and I focused only on the final exam and repressed all the negative feelings from the third exam, and it went very well in the end. Other things that you can't control in medicine are things like what other people think about you. Don't worry about looking stupid. Try to answer the question. It helps to learn, and when you make mistakes, it really helps to learn when you say something stupid, because you'll never forget the correct answer. Sometimes on the wards, people will say rude things, people are frustrated. You can't control that. Don't worry about it. Be impervious to people who are just irritated all the time. A final point on this is being proactive as a team member. Often as a medical student, you join teams and you kind of act as an observer, a fly on the wall, just observing all the interactions from as like a third party. But if you can engage and be proactive and, join the team, be a part of the team, part of the ward round, you'll learn way more. So for example, if you see that a patient has a drain, maybe it's a surgical site drain and it's draining fluid, obviously the team's going to then want to see the fluid chart, the fluid balance, how fast has it been draining and things like that. So get the fluid chart ready for them. They'll love that. If you hear IV antibiotics, prepare a cannula set in a kidney dish. If you see someone who's not wearing TED stockings, the compression stockings that help prevent DVTs in hospitals, go grab some for the nurse. If the team sees that kind of stuff, they'll realize that actually you're part of the ward round. Offer to take notes, all those sorts of things. Really good to be a proactive team member. Being proactive is probably the most important of the 7 habits. So if you'd like, you can stop watching the video now. If you're continuing to watch, then habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. Now in the book, it talks very philosophically about what would you want to say at your own funeral? What would you want your friends to think about you and reflect on your life when you die? Like what is the impact that you want to have? And if you start thinking about that now, then hopefully you'll make the right decisions to follow that path so that you hit that goal later. I think you can kind of break this up into smaller steps in life and kind of, if you're a medical student, think about what is the kind of doctor you want to be at the end of medical school? What are the kind of skills that you want to have when you finish medicine? And think about that early in medicine and you'll start thinking a little bit differently. For me, I didn't necessarily want to get good grades. I just wanted to survive on the wards and be kind of street smart. I wanted to know how things worked around the wards. So instead of studying at home a lot, I think I got a lot more value in being on the ward and learning from teams and talking to interns about their insights. This also meant that instead of studying from textbooks, learning from YouTubers who were clinicians was a better form of learning for me. And there's a quote that summarizes this quite well, and that's, you don't want to climb a ladder just to find out that it's on the wrong wall, right? The third habit in the book is about putting first things first, and this is prioritization skills. This is kind of something that you can't teach, you just kind of get with time and mistakes. But you really want to have a good ability to prioritize tasks, especially as a doctor, but definitely as a medical student, because you're going to have heaps of assignment workload, you're going to have study workload, you're going to have social workload, because you know, it can be a pretty social time. You might have extracurricular activities with your medical societies and stuff. So you have to kind of decide what's important. And in the book, they talk about this kind of framework that I'll draw up here. And that's essentially on the y-axis, it's what's important and what's not important. And then on the x-axis, what's urgent and what's non-urgent. And the things you really want to focus on are the urgent and important things and the non-urgent and important things. So the most urgent and important thing in medical school is passing, okay? You just need to pass, and then after you passing, you can focus on some of the other things. Things that are urgent and not important are the things that essentially interrupt your work. This could be like a toxic relationship or checking Facebook. I don't know what it is for you. For me, it's usually social media. But at the same time enjoyed wasted is not time wasted, so you balance that one out. And then the non-urgent, not important stuff, forget about it. They're trivial, time wasting. If it's not important and it's not urgent, it's not worth your time. But a hot tip here, in terms of tasks and prioritization and to-do lists, the other week I learned this really cool tip. And it's, if something takes less than 3 minutes, do it straight away. Don't delay it. So, watering the plants. 3 minutes, do it now. Doing the dishes, things like that. Just get them done. Because getting one task off of your very long to-do list is quite a significant thing, so do it. So these different habits are starting to interrelate. So things that are not important but feel urgent, like checking Facebook and Instagram and stuff. If you think about starting with the end in mind, no one has ever died hoping that they spent more time checking Facebook or Instagram. But if you do spend a lot of time on Facebook and Instagram, consider following me. The links are in the description below. So guys, these first 3 habits have been about the transitioning of being a dependent human to an independent human. And that's often what happens when you go to university. You start developing this independence. The next bunch of habits assume that you've developed the independence and start developing you towards the skills of interdependence. So it's all about teamwork and working with other people. So habit number 4 is think win-win. There's a lot of different types of deals and relationships out there. There's win-lose, there's lose-lose, but there's also win-win. And when you think in this mentality about how you helping someone else can help you and everyone benefits, in medical school, the key kind of thing that I think relates here is teaching. Okay, when you teach junior students, you learn. That is a very good win-win. When you help your colleagues, you benefit, so help them. Lose the sense of competitiveness that doesn't help anyone. Another win-win relationship might be you liking this YouTube video because you think it was helpful to you, which makes it look very yummy to YouTube's algorithm because they love likes, and then it'll show it to other medical students. Habit number 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is extremely important if you want to be a good clinician and a good historian. So someone who takes really good histories from patients. So often, and I do it all the time, especially if I'm not actively engaged in listening, but so often we listen with the intent of forming our reply. That's why we can't remember anyone's names, because when you're saying, "Hi, I'm Sil," you're automatically thinking about what the next thing you're going to say is. You're not thinking about what they're saying, which is, "Hi, my name's Greg." You forget that their name was Greg because you're trying to think of the next line to come out of your mouth. Listen with full attention and empathically, okay? Listen and you will hear things that other people don't hear. And especially when you're taking history from patients, doctors often don't have time to listen with full attention. So when you listen this way, you might pick up on small nuances that indicate that the patient is talking about something that there's more to it, and you want to kind of unpack that a little bit. And often doctors won't have picked up on this, and you can find out things that the doctors didn't know about that might be helpful to their care. This habit also relates to learning. So, there's only 2 real questions you have to know to be a good learner, and that's, as you're learning something, you ask yourself, does this make sense? That's it. If you're learning something and you say, does this make sense? And you can say, yeah, it makes sense because A plus B equals C. Right, it makes sense. But if you're thinking, I'm a bit vague, like why does C equal D? You need to then take a step back, all right? And then keep asking yourself at every stage, does this make sense? The second question you need to always ask yourself to understand things is, could I explain this to a 5-year-old? Do I understand this at its core basic principles enough that I could kind of give an overview to a 5-year-old? That's how you understand things, okay? Then you can seek to be understood. Habit number 6 is synergise, which is the sum being greater than the parts. Is that it? The sum being greater than the whole of the part. The sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. You will achieve much better things in groups. And this applies to medicine in that having a study group is a good idea. I prefer one-on-one study groups, so smaller, because then you have to be active, you have to be engaged, and you're always going to be accountable. You can't kind of diffuse responsibility if there's only 2 people in there. But the point is, being in groups and in different communities, you can achieve great things. So think about joining your local medical school community. You might, especially if it's about something you enjoy, like the psychiatric community or whatever you're into. And this will relate onwards into medicine as a career, because you'll be working with people from different backgrounds. And, if it was just doctors in hospitals, there'd be a lot of sick people in hospital. But the fact that we have social workers, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, nurses, means that as a whole, we can deliver pretty bloody good quality care, at least compared to like international standards. Habit number 7, and the last habit, is sharpen the saw. And this is, in the book, they talk about this guy who's trying to cut down a tree with a rusty old saw, and someone else is like, that's going to take 6 hours, you should sharpen your saw. The guy cutting the tree is saying, I don't have time to sharpen my saw, I've got to cut this tree down. But if he had sharpened the saw, it would have taken half the time. So the expression is, you don't have time not to sharpen your saw. And in medicine, this is essentially the continuous learning. You will always be learning as a clinician. And as a medical student, you need to put a lot of effort into learning outside of the lecture theatre, because the future of learning is not in lecture theatres. Watch Osmosis, watch Armando Hassanan, use YouTube as the wonderful resource that it is. Watch medical student vlogs like this one, because they give you insights that you might not otherwise have gained that could be very valuable to your development as a good medical student. It also means socialize, exercise, revitalize. Just do all those good things, because the sharper your saw is, the quicker the tree will come down. That's actually not that nice an analogy. Because I'm a big fan of trees, Anyway, that's the analogy they used. Guys, that is it for this video. Thank you for tuning in to the end. If you enjoyed this content, consider subscribing. I'd love to have you as one of the subscribers. We're a small community, but we're growing. And you can also check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and I'm going to start Twitch streaming. So you can also see me there. I'm going to do kind of patient case reflections. So we'll see how that goes. Have an absolutely lovely day, guys. Bye for now.